well, Ron Swanson was right after all. The best things in life are woodworking, butchering your own meat, and strong perimeter defenses. Episode 3 gives us a look at true love in the post-apocalypse with one of the most touching, if not short-lived human stories yet. I'm Max Lichtig, and here's all the details you missed in Episode 3. The third episode introduces us and then quickly says goodbye to Bill and Frank. Their touching story of survival and true love takes center stage when we learn the 20 years of backstory around Nick Offerman's Survivalist. This is also where the show takes one of the biggest departures yet from the original game. Bill was a character in the PlayStation Classic, however he took a more active role in Joel and Ellie's story. In the game, he is still alive when the pair reach his walled-off stronghold, and Bill even rescues Joel from a ravenous swarm of shiitakes. In fact, in the game, we never even see Bill die. Instead, he kicks Joel and Ellie out of his town after working with them to survive, and as far as we know, could still be alive by the end of part 2. Maybe we'll end up learning more of his suggested wine and meat pairings. Obviously, the whole Bill surviving thing is not quite the case here, and the HBO show chooses to tell a more personal and tender story about Bill and Frank's love. This story was hinted at in the game, with mementos and details of their relationship strewn around Bill's home, as well as Bill briefly talking about his partner when Joel, Bill, and Ellie later find Frank's hanging body. Yikes. Bill was originally played by character actor W. Earl Brown, who has his own history with HBO in shows like Deadwood. In live action, he is played by the legendary Nick Offerman, who wasn't actually the first person cast for the show. Originally, Bill was going to be played by actor Con O'Neill, who had to drop out for scheduling reasons. And we are more than happy with that choice, as Offerman's performance is stellar, even if it is a little close to Ron Swanson. Both tend to make themselves a little too comfortable in a Home Depot.
I know more than you.
All right.
Anyone who's watched The White Lotus Season 1 is probably familiar with Murray Bartlett as the substance addiction battling, wonderfully deranged Armand, who slowly spirals out of control while trying to tend to every guest's high maintenance needs. Here, we have Murray playing a very different role as the catalyst to Bill's soft side, Frank. We meet Frank as he's helplessly stranded in one of Bill's perimeter traps, and he mentions that he was with a group of 10 leaving the Baltimore QZ for the Boston QZ, and that group ultimately dwindled to one lone survivor. In the game, Frank's traveling to Boston is briefly mentioned in a note that Joel finds, explaining that Frank was trying to get a smuggler to sneak him into the city illegally. We actually don't know much about Frank in the game, and this episode provides a lot of color for his and Bill's characters, similar to what episode 1 did for Sarah. In the game, Joel finds a note from Frank addressed to Bill with Frank's last words written on it, including the fact that he hated his guts. Damn, Frank, is the apocalypse really the right time to cut so deep? But in the show, their relationship is a lot more romantic, and we only get a couple examples of their lovers' quarrels, including one where Frank calls Bill out for believing that 9/11 was an inside job.
And the government are all Nazis.
The government are all Nazis!
Well, yeah, now, but not then.
So Joel and Ellie are back in road trip mode, and Ellie decides to kill the long, uncomfortable journey with endless questions about the apocalypse. And Joel gives us some new details that make the preceding 2 episodes even better. So in one day, the world collapsed. How could that have happened? Well, episode 2 shows us that the mutated cordyceps fungus started in the perfect substrate of a flour mill in Jakarta. Dr. Newman in episode 1 explained that global warming could cause the fungus to evolve into a form that could live at temperatures of 98.1 degrees, thus enabling it to make the jump to humans. Nations like Indonesia have traditionally faced the impacts of climate change first, so that's where the fungus naturally evolved. It then spread from the flour to manufacturing plants and eventually store shelves around the world. If you go back to the final day shown in episode 1, take special notice that both Joel and Sarah pass up every flour-based product in front of them. Sarah was even going to make Joel pancakes for his birthday, but they ended up bailing on the idea. Joel even takes an emotional beat in episode 3, right before he says that the fungus infected everything.
Bread, cereal, pancake mix.
This also makes that moment of Grandma being force-fed those biscuits extra bleak. Episode 3 certainly does change things up, and not just from the game. The first 2 episodes of the series followed a bit of a similar format, with an opening set in the past that provides context and story setup to the rest of the episode in the alternate year of 2023. This week's episode flips that on its head. The show starts right after Tessa's explosive end and follows Joel and Ellie as they make their way towards the mysterious Bill. When they come upon the mass grave of people executed by the government, the story then flashes back to 2003. Side note, how thankful were you that the show didn't make us watch that baby get shot? Thank you. Series creators Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin have talked about how the show will continue to return to the pre-fungified world from time to time, and will provide more context on things that have already happened. So expect more flashbacks and possibly more heartbreak in our future. Scratch that, definitely more heartbreak in our future. Aren't TV and video games fun? Again, video games aren't just about shooting. They're about heartbreak and human stories, Mom. Serious talk time. If you haven't played the video game and you want to remain in the dark on some major events the show may portray, then watch out because I'm dropping more spoilers than Tokyo Drift. Come on, for this dark subject material, we need stupid puns. When Joel and Ellie re-enter the episode, they come upon the deserted final resting place of the beardy husbands in their post-apocalyptic bed and breakfast. Ellie reads Joel the note Bill left for him or anyone who might come along. It gives him some advice that his true purpose is to find something good and fight like hell to protect it no matter the cost. As she reads this, he looks at Ellie with something new in his eyes. This is a huge bit of foreshadowing for his ultimate decision. In the game's climax, Joel finally gets Ellie to the Fireflies in their research lab. He is told they can use Ellie to find a cure for the fungus, but the process will kill Ellie. Joel says, hell nope, shoots the doctor and Marlene and runs away with Ellie. He sacrifices any chance at a cure for her life, and it's the easiest decision in the game. He does as Bill says, and protects what's most important to him, no matter the cost. Solid life advice from the man who already brought us the Pyramid of Greatness.
Capitalism, God's way of determining who is smart and who is poor.
Hey music legend Linda Ronstadt, if you're watching this YouTube breakdown video, and I know you are, let me just say I hope you enjoy the sudden influx of Spotify plays and iTunes purchases. You truly deserve it. The latest episode featured the song Long Long Time by the accomplished singer. It's the catalyst for the initial sparks between Bill and Frank when we get Nick Offerman's piano rendition.
You know how much these are worth?
Currently nothing.
The episode also ends with Joel and Ellie listening to the song as part of Bill's tape collection. The song, aside from just being good, has a lot of meaning in how it ties into the episode. While it may seem deeply tied into the love story of Bill and Frank, it also has major connections to Joel, as Bill's note so devastatingly illustrates. Joel did fail to protect Tess from a terrible fate. The first lines of the song's final verse are, "Wait for the day you'll go away, knowing that you warned me of the price I'd have to pay." Joel's loss of Tess is the price he is paying for his drive to find his brother and deliver Ellie safe. The song also continues with, "And life's full of flaws, who knows the cause? Living in the memory of a love that never was." The episode shows people who are still connected to the old world. Joel remembers plane rides and how to drive cars. Bill still cooks fancy meals and sits at dining room tables. Even Frank wants to clean up the shops and paint the houses. They are all clinging to a memory of the world. Actually, while we're following down this metaphorical rabbit hole, a strong running theme in this episode is how disconnected Ellie is from a world that existed before the Moldy Uprising. As the two are making their way through the woods outside Boston, Ellie remarks that she has never been in a forest before.
More bugs than I thought.
When Joel and her pass the plane, she seems impressed that he once flew in them. Joel only remembers the TSA and stale peanuts, but Ellie is taken with the romanticism of air travel. She's amazed by the Mortal Kombat 2 arcade, and she considers the inside of an S-10 to be like a spaceship. It's a constant reminder to both Joel and the audience that the post-Outbreak world is the only one that people under the age of 20 know. Very similar to our upcoming apocalyptic reality where kids will be born into a world where to them, TikTok is just a normal, totally not creepy social media platform. As we see with Bill and Frank, that knowledge of the old world will die with them. There is hope in the form of Ellie's immunity, but when a show features this many dead kids, I wouldn't hold my breath for a bright, cheery ending. When Joel and Ellie are talking about the start of the infection, she has a theory that it started because of a monkey bite. While she may have heard this rumor from an adult, it's more likely that she got it from some half-chewed VHS copy of the 1995 virus thriller Outbreak. Of course, it's probably a reference to the long-held theory that a monkey was responsible for the start of the AIDS pandemic, but this show doesn't seem like the kind of series to make overt political statements.
Teach us how their government failed to prevent a pandemic.
Neil Druckmann reminds us in episode 3 that as one of the best storytellers working today, he knows how to develop a beautifully human story. This is usually what adaptations forget, that in the end, it's the relationships that matter. With an episode considerably quieter than the previous two, we take a step back from the violence of the apocalypse and are instead invited into one of the most refreshing, if short-lived, love stories of any show today. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go cry some more.